The day the alien queen ordered my life bound to her barren daughter, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. I was standing on the obsidian floor of the Thalzyra throne chamber when the decree echoed through the hall, translated into my language by a hovering prism of light. One human. One alien princess. A political solution disguised as mercy. And I knew, even then, that nothing in the universe would ever be the same again. But that was only the beginning. Earth had already lost the war long before their ships darkened our skies. The Thalzyra didn't conquer with fire, they conquered with precision, with treaties written after cities surrendered themselves out of fear. I was a systems engineer pulled from the ruins of New Seattle, selected not for bravery or strength, but compatibility. They said the princess could not bear children. They said I was expendable. They were wrong about both. Princess Kalira stood beside her mother, Queen Varexa, her posture flawless, her silver-blue skin marked with ceremonial glyphs that pulsed softly like a heartbeat. Kalira's eyes never met mine. Not once. To her I was a tool. A final experiment. A human variable in an equation that had already failed 100 times before. None of us were prepared for the truth. The Thalzyra believed lineage was everything. Their empire was built on bloodlines engineered over millennia, each queen chosen not by love, but by genetic prophecy. Kalira was brilliant, composed, and cursed. Barren. A dead end. And in their culture, that was a fate worse than exile. So they married her to me. The ceremony was cold and efficient. No vows. No music. Just a binding ritual that linked our neural patterns, ensuring compliance and observation. I felt her presence in my mind like distant thunder, controlled, restrained, and full of quiet rage. What happens if this fails? I asked the translator, my voice barely steady. The prism flickered. Then your usefulness ends. That night, in the sterile chambers assigned to us, Kalira finally looked at me. Really looked. There was no hatred in her eyes. Only exhaustion. You will not touch me unless commanded, she said. Hope is inefficient. I should have agreed. Instead, I said, I don't believe you're broken. What I saw next changed everything. Days turned into months aboard the orbital palace of Xiron Prime. We lived like strangers trapped in the same gravity well, orbiting each other without collision. But slowly, impossibly, cracks formed in Kalira's perfect composure. She watched me repair damaged conduits by hand, refusing drones. She listened as I spoke of Earth sunsets, of oceans that smelled like memory. And one night, during a power fluctuation that silenced the surveillance grid for exactly 3 minutes, she reached for my hand. That was when everything shifted. The Thalzyra scientists never understood human biology. They measured life in probabilities and dismissals. They didn't account for emotion, for stubborn hope, for the chaotic spark that had carried our species across the stars in rusted ships long before first contact. When Kalira collapsed months later, the palace erupted in alarms. Pregnancy was impossible. That was doctrine. That was law. But impossibility had never stopped humanity before. The queen ordered secrecy. The child, or children as it turned out, were to be monitored, hidden, studied. Kalira was terrified. Not of birth. Of discovery. If they take them, she whispered, her voice shaking for the first time, they will not be allowed to live as people. I made a choice then. A dangerous one. We ran. Using old maintenance tunnels and codes I had memorized during years of forced service, we escaped Xiron Prime in a forgotten scout vessel. The galaxy beyond was vast and unforgiving, but it was free. We vanished into uncharted space, carrying a future no empire had predicted. But that was only the beginning. Our children were born on a quiet moon orbiting a dying star. Twins. A boy and a girl. Their skin shimmered faintly, human warmth beneath alien light. They cried like human infants, loud and demanding, and Kalira wept as she held them, her tears glowing softly in the dim cabin light. For the first time, she smiled without restraint. Years passed. We built a life among the fringe worlds, hiding in plain sight. Our children grew quickly, curious and fearless. They asked impossible questions. They dreamed of stars they had never seen. And all the while, the Thalzyra searched. Around the midpoint of our peace, the signal came. An imperial broadcast that froze my blood. Queen Varexa had declared Kalira officially deceased. Her line extinguished. The throne prepared for succession. It should have been relief. Instead, it felt like a warning. What if she finds us? I asked. Kalira looked at our children, then at the stars. Then the universe will change. None of us were prepared for how. The day the Imperial Dreadnought descended over our moon, the sky burned violet. Villagers fled. Our children stood frozen, eyes wide with awe rather than fear. Kalira stepped forward, regal even in exile. Queen Virexa emerged alone, her presence bending the air itself. She looked older, harder. And when her gaze fell upon the twins, time seemed to stop. Her composure shattered. "This is not possible," she whispered, stepping closer, her voice trembling. "I saw your future end." Kalira met her eyes. "You saw what you were willing to accept." The children stared back at the queen, unafraid. The girl reached out, her small hand glowing softly, mirroring the queen's own energy field. A perfect resonance. A living contradiction. The Empire's logic collapsed in that moment. Virexa fell to her knees. Years of certainty dissolved as she realized the truth. The prophecy was wrong. Not broken. Incomplete. It had never accounted for humanity. "What have I done?" the queen whispered. The final confrontation never came. There was no battle. No execution. Only understanding, slow and painful. The Thalzyra withdrew. Treaties were rewritten. Bloodlines redefined. Our children became symbols of a new era. And as Queen Virexa left, she turned back one last time, her eyes filled with something dangerously close to hope. The universe had chosen differently. And this time it chose us.